Hello learners, welcome to this program. Today we shall be discussing a few models of instructional designing. I am Shutapa Bose. I teach at the School of Education, Indira Gandhi National Open University. There are many models of instructional designing, but during this program we shall discuss only a few. First of all, let us discuss the ADDIE model. ADDIE. This is an acronym for a model which covers major processes of instructional designing. These processes are analysis, design, development, implementation and evaluation. We know that instructional designing is actually a process of planned teaching which begins with the process of determining learners' needs, what they should learn, what they would like to learn, and accordingly setting instructional objectives, selecting and developing, procuring learning content which could be used for providing learning experiences. We also think about how to deliver the content, how to assess whether the content delivered has been effective in facilitating learning, and this is carried out through the process of assessment. This is how instructional designing is carried out, but even though these are the basic steps of instructional designing can follow any one of the many models, or it may even be an eclectic one, whereby a few steps of different models could be used to develop a model of instructional designing. ADDIE model happens to be quite an old model, quite a popular model, and it is a model with which many of us are familiar. And this model has been used subsequently for developing more models. This has sort of provided a basis for many more models which have been developed subsequently. As I said that this begins with the process of analysis. This model begins with the process of analysis. And what do we do during the analysis phase? We analyze needs. What are learners' needs? What should they learn? If they are school children, they don't determine their learning needs. We do it for them, and therefore we determine what they should learn. But if they are adult learners, they would be in a position to articulate their needs. They would be in a better position to exercise choices regarding courses, regarding programs and other avenues of learning. They might decide which one would suit them. Therefore, it is important to determine what learners would like to learn, what are their needs, and then what are their interests. What is the average age of the target group? The target group or the audience refers to the cohort of learners who would be joining the programs or courses offered. So what is going to be the mean age of this cohort? What is going to be their prior learning? Are they ready for the course? Are they ready for the program that we are going to offer? Would they be able to cope up with the level of complexity, the difficulty level at which we as teachers would be pitching the course or the program? Do they have the readiness for it? All these things are examined, and after examining all these aspects, we develop a learner profile. Learner profile projects the needs of the learners. As per the learning needs, the needs for learning, that is, why should I teach a content until and unless my learners really need to learn it? After determining what they really want to learn, what I should teach them, I, as a teacher, would formulate instructional objectives. This is the analysis phase which helps us to analyze learners' needs. The next step happens to be that of designing. It is the designing phase. During the designing phase, what does the teacher do? She ponders over, deliberates on the instructional interventions. What should be the instructional interventions which would help to attain the instructional objectives which have been formulated following the determination of learning needs. She decides on the instructional interventions, plans how to provide these. What does it mean? That planning how to provide these well, she could be thinking about the sequence in which the content needs to be taught. What should be taught first and what should be taught subsequently? What should be taught towards the end? She has to plan this in order to determine the instructional interventions apart from deciding the content which she would teach. Therefore, she decides the sequence of the content and then how she would deliver the content. Whether it would be through print medium, whether it is going to be in a face-to-face classroom or through some other medium or maybe using multimedia. These are the things which she plans at this stage. Therefore, during the design phase, how instructions would be delivered, how learners are going to learn, all these decisions are taken. This is an important stage. What would be taught, in which sequence or order it would be taught, using which media the content would be taught, the decisions are taken. Subject content is selected and analyzed as per the instructional objectives, keeping in view the goals. This is very important so that the content selection is such that and its delivery is such that learning indeed happens and teaching is effective. In other words, we may say that we select content only if it helps to fulfill the instructional objectives that we have set forth at the very beginning. And after having selected the content, we think about its organization, its sequencing. Now coming to the next stage. This is the development stage, development phase. Learning material is produced, or if you already have learning material which is free for use, or if you have the copyright approvals, the copyright permissions, and you know that it is absolutely okay to use it, or if it is an OER, you can procure such material and then you can develop the learning material. For example, text-based content is developed, like the units of the self-learning material developed for delivery through the print medium by IGNOU. The content is then tested on a small group. It is always good to do this. This helps the process of formative evaluation. You take a small sample of the target group and you ask them to read it, or to, if it is a video, you ask them to watch it, and on the basis of the feedback they provide, you can improve the content. You can thereby improve the learning experiences that you provide to your learners. After that, the program or course is implemented. This is the implementation phase. But this is not the last stage. After implementation phase, there is the phase of evaluation. Evaluation is carried out in order to determine whether learners have learnt. This would in turn reflect whether the designing has been done appropriately, if the content has been selected appropriately, if it has in other words, if the course has been implemented well, if the instructions have been delivered well. If learners have not learned, if the evaluation outcomes indicate that learners have not been able to demonstrate the learning outcomes, what do we do? This is an iterative process. We don't stop at a particular phase. After evaluation, after we have got the results, we don't stop there. If learners have learnt well, we could continue with the delivery of the course. We could continue with the implementation without going back to the planning and designing stage. But if learners have not learnt, what do we do then? We check the design stage. We begin checking right from the design stage whether the experiences, learning experiences have been designed well. Have these been designed for facilitating learning? So this is what we check at this stage. And after that we check the delivery. Whether the delivery of the course has been effective. That is the implementation stage. And this helps us to determine the problems that need to be resolved, that need to be addressed. And this approach keeps teaching and learning focused, but it requires constant monitoring of outputs so that we may bring about an improvement in the inputs. Nevertheless, even though this is the advantage of this model, there are limitations. First of all, this adopts a fixed approach. The learning experiences once selected are delivered. It does not accommodate diverse learning outcomes. For example, if we follow the constructivist approach, reality is perceived as per the values learners hold as per their subjectivities. Therefore, there could be multiple realities. There could be diverse learning outcomes. However, if we want to test these outcomes vis-a-vis the instructional objectives, it would be difficult. That is because the instructional objectives being fixed, it becomes later on difficult to accommodate diverse learning outcomes. Similarly, when the objective pertains to the affective domain, what does this domain refer to? The affective domain is about emotions. Like, for example, we may want our learners to respect wildlife. We may want our learners to respect the ecosystem, the environment. How would we determine whether learners have indeed developed respect as a value? This is very difficult to determine. The outcomes are hard to define and therefore are hard to assess and match with the instructional objectives that we had set at the outset. Coming to the next model, which is the Dick and Carey model. This is another model of instructional designing. This model does not treat its components. A model has several elements or components. This model too comprises several components. Nevertheless, as per this model, we should not consider the components as isolated parts, but we should try to make out, understand the interrelatedness of these parts which influence each other, and because of which the entire model works as a system. One part is related to the other. Well, in the ADDIE model too, it's not that the different phases are not related. Nevertheless, this model takes a systems approach. Moreover, it considers the context and therefore it takes into account the target groups. Profile, it puts a lot of emphasis on learners' profile, including the readiness for learning, which is determined in terms of their prior understanding. What do they know? Only after I understand my learner's prior understanding, I would be in a position to develop learning experiences, design and develop learning experience which would further the learner's understanding. We need to provide instructions that build upon learners' prior knowledge, and therefore we have to determine what is the level of their prior knowledge, how much do they know, do they at all know. I'll cite a very simple example. In a classroom, say at a primary level school, if a teacher wants to teach multiplication, she has to assess the student's prior knowledge in terms of the skills for adding. Just imagine trying to teach a child how to multiply without ascertaining whether she knows how to add. Similarly, if I want to teach division, I would have to check whether the child has the necessary prerequisite skill of subtraction. Without having a basic idea of instructional design, if a teacher teaches models of instructional design, learners' understanding would not be furthered. Therefore, it is essential to determine learners' readiness for learning. We determine instructional goals, objectives, but instructional goals are set to clarify what learners will be able to do after learning. And there is instructional analysis in terms of learners' knowledge, what they know and what they should recall, and what they must be able to do. All these things are determined, and you see that these things are quite related to each other. What they already know, what they should be able to recall. If coming back to the example of multiplication, if a child wants to learn multiplication, she should be in a position to recall her skills for addition. If a student wants to learn about models of instructional design, she should be in a position, or rather facilitated, to recall her understanding about instructional design and what they should be able to do after learning. It could be multiplication, it could be description of models of instructional designing. Therefore, analysis of the entry-level behavior of learners and the context. This is important because it helps us to build the profile of the target group. We study the profile of the target group, their previous knowledge, experience, and also their age. Just imagine trying to teach a 5-year-old child how to calculate compound interest. Usually it is not done. We take into consideration learners' age as well as previous learning experiences in order to determine their readiness. And there are demographic aspects as well. Characteristics that are directly related to the skill to be taught are examined, like the ability to use a computer. If I want to offer a program online, or if it is a master's level computer course, it is necessary to determine whether they know the basics and they have the bachelor's level of readiness, understanding. We write performance objectives. This helps because we know how to ascertain whether or not learners have learned just by checking their performance after the class is over. After having taught, I can assess whether they have learned. How do I do that? Just by checking their performance. But then I need to write the performance objectives. For that, I need to describe the behavior that my learners would be exhibiting following the instructions. And the demonstration of this performance would be under a given set of conditions and criteria. I'll cite an example here. For example, learners should be able to divide a 3-digit number by a single-digit number. If they can do this, they would be demonstrating a particular behavior. But what are the conditions? They would be doing this without a calculator. And the second condition is that they should be doing it accurately at least till 2 decimal points. So this is a criterion. The criteria are useful for evaluating learners' attainments, performance, and also for aligning the learning objectives, the objectives of learning with their attainment. The criteria spelled out thus will help us in enhancing the possibility of achieving the objectives, because I am sure of the behavior of the performance that I expect following instructions. Whether learners are able to do that is taken into consideration, and therefore it enhances the possibility, or I might say that it enhances the likelihood of teaching being successful. Development of instruments for assessment is therefore required. It could be a pre-test for testing entry-level behavior. I could begin the class by testing my learner's ability to define, describe instructional design, and after that I could proceed towards the teaching of models of instructional designing, and then I could hold a post-test and assess my learner's ability to describe models of instructional designing. We also design the scope and the exercises for practicing, like problem solving exercises could be developed, and this is how we come up with an instructional strategy. The content to be taught, the activities the learners will carry out are planned in advance. We also develop and select instructional materials, just like in ADDIE model, and we also design formative evaluation of instructions. And again, this is also tested on a small group of learners. So there are similarities with the ADDIE model, and the feedback is then used to identify the areas or the steps that need to be improved. Coming to another model, which is the ASSURE model. This model also comprises several steps. A is for analyzing learners' needs, quite similar to the model that we have just described. Learners' needs and characteristics help us to build learners' profile and also help us to ascertain their readiness for the course that we intend to deliver. S is for stating the standards and objectives, and this helps to determine the quality of instructions, because we begin by setting standards, objectives, and specifying what learners will be able to do following the instruction. S is also for selection of strategies, technology, media, and materials for imparting instructions. These things will also help us to determine how to deliver the learning experiences. And then U, utilize technology, media, and the materials. So this is somewhat similar to the implementation phase of the model that we have just discussed. We plan the implementation, how to use technology, media, materials, and how the content needs to be prepared, procured, previewed, and provided, and of course packaged in the form of learning experience. R is for requiring learners' participation. We plan the activities in which we shall engage learners. These activities are designed in advance. These activities could be group activities, or maybe learners would be assigned activities which they would be carrying out individually. And finally, E stands for evaluation and revision. This is again same as in the ADDIE model. This is the reason why I had said that ADDIE model has provided a base for subsequent development of several other models. Coming to the next model, which is the ARCS model. This model describes the strategies that we would be using for stimulating and sustaining learners' motivation. We know that motivation is very important for learning. Unless a learner is motivated, why would she learn something? And how to arouse interest, how to create motivation, and at the same time how to sustain the level of motivation. Maybe if we can create interest, the learner would be motivated to learn, but very soon they might lose interest and their attention may not be as high as it was at the beginning. We therefore need to design the strategies for drawing learners' attention. Without drawing attention to what we are going to teach, it is not possible to teach. For this, we need to create novelty. This is one way of drawing attention, something new. If learners are not familiar with a particular experience, we can draw their attention. For example, if we bring a live plant in the classroom, a whole plant, roots, the shoot, leaves, flower, which we usually don't do. In order to teach the parts of a plant, if we do this, this would create novelty. Or if we take our learners to a field trip and introduce them to the local plants, that would also create novelty. We need to stimulate curiosity. This could also be done through questions, or we could describe problematic situations that, well, every year this locality gets flooded, or the environmental pollution, air pollution is on the rise. What could we do about it? When we pose problematic situations, when we ask questions, when we place the learners in a problematic situation, the learner is compelled to think about it, and this also helps us to draw their attention. Another way is to create variation in instructional material. This also helps to sustain attention. For example, the content of the self-learning material of IGNOU, which is offered through print medium, what we do is that we include within the units sometimes cases within a box. Sometimes there are questions, probing questions. Sometimes there are interesting graphics. We also include activities. This breaks, all these things will break the monotony and sustain learners' interest. They would not wander away from the classroom mentally. Relevance, this is also important. Learning experiences that are relevant or meaningful to learners, especially if they are adult learners, that helps the instructional processes and makes instructions effective. The learning experiences that we provide should fulfill learners' needs. If learners need to learn certain skills, our learning experiences that we provide should help them to fulfill those needs. One way to establish the relevance of the learning material is to use authentic and real-world examples. For example, in teacher education courses, we could include the problems that are commonly faced in schools, like problems pertaining to discipline, problems pertaining to lack of basic skills. So these examples will make the content relevant. When instructions enhance the confidence of learners and promote self-efficacy, learners are motivated. Therefore, we need to take steps like providing instructions that match the prior knowledge of learners, so that they are in a position to acquire the new learning experiences. Otherwise, if they feel that there is a mismatch, if there is a gap, learners would not understand the new concept. The language also should be simple. So this is how we can build their confidence. Satisfying learners is also important. Satisfying outcomes, when they feel that, okay, my learning needs have been fulfilled, the learning experiences would be considered to be satisfying, and this would also facilitate learning. When learners are in a position to accomplish the tasks that are set for them, they have a satisfying learning experiences. Therefore, the tasks should be doable. We have discussed quite a few models of instructional designing. Thank you.